Well, Texas House Speaker Dade Phelan lives to fight another day. Phelan won his runoff race yesterday in what was the most expensive House race in state history.
Phelan, who represents District 21 near Beaumont and the Louisiana state line, beat David Covey, who had the support of former President Donald Trump and Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. When the legislature meets in January, there will be three fewer Republican incumbents. They lost yesterday. Governor Greg Abbott wanted to defeat them over their opposition to his plan for private school tuition subsidies. Abbott says he now has a majority in the House for that plan.
All right, joining us right now is our Capitol correspondent, Ryan Chandler. Ryan was here until about 1 this morning.
Nice turnaround.
Not quite. It feels like it, though.
So here for a breakdown now. Let's start with the Speaker of the House race and what that runoff means.
This was the main card last night. This was really the culmination of a year of Republican infighting. Phelan was the main target for a wing of the party that is trying to push out some more traditional, they say, establishment members of the Republican Party. Think Donald Trump, Ken Paxton. And they blamed Phelan for what they believe should have been a more conservative session. By all accounts, last session was one of the most conservative in Texas history, but they think that Phelan should have done more, and they poured millions of dollars into trying to oust him. And they came very close. 366 votes made the difference. But Phelan now survives to try and run for Speaker again. He already has a challenger in the House. One of his, at least maybe former allies, is now running against him to get the Speaker's gavel and run the House. So this race is not quite over yet, but at least Phelan will have his seat next session.
It does make you wonder, though, with Attorney General Ken Paxton endorsing the opponent and then Phelan still winning, it does make you wonder about what sort of influence he might have going forward with these sorts of things.
Well, sure. One of the main points of attack against Phelan was that he oversaw the impeachment of Ken Paxton, which, of course, Paxton's allies believe was unjustified and unnecessary. Phelan will maintain that they saw what they thought were legitimate violations of not only ethics but law, and they did what they thought was right. Of course, we know what the Senate did after that. But Paxton waged what has been affectionately titled a revenge tour against every House member who voted to impeach him. And he had mixed success. Phelan, of course, was his #1 target, and he has already threatened House members who may vote for Phelan for Speaker again, that if they do so, they will become his next target in the next cycle.
I was going to ask that question about this vote coming up, but you just answered it. So, yeah, he's going to try to have some influence on that as well.
Of course.
And we know Governor Abbott, we know that he backed several challengers. And so what are the implications of that and really with the school voucher program?
This was the other front in this Republican war that we've seen play out. Governor Abbott last session, his #1 priority was to pass what he calls a school choice initiative, essentially using taxpayer dollars to subsidize private school tuition for families who may want to move their kids out of public school. He was stopped by 21 Republicans, mostly from rural areas, who believed that that program wouldn't benefit their constituents. And he targeted many of them and won in many of their races by funding challengers who would support that program. He declared victory last night, saying that he now has the votes to pass a school choice plan in the House, which, any way you look at it, is a remarkable political feat for the governor. Just objectively, he went within a year from being down 21 votes to now claiming that he has a majority. That is a significant shift in the Republican Party, and it may translate to major policy changes next session.
Well, we want to talk about that shift as well, just kind of the big picture Republican Party in the state of Texas. With the wins last night, with the losses last night, how does it all match? What's going on here?
The way it was put to me is we're really seeing a realignment of what it means to be conservative, what it means to be a good Republican. By all accounts, Dade Phelan is a conservative. He oversaw sessions that banned abortion, banned diversity, equity, and inclusion, allowed permitless carry of handguns. Not Democratic priorities, to say the least. Very, very conservative policies have come into place under Phelan. But if you ask Donald Trump or Ken Paxton, he is a Democrat because he appoints Democrats to chair some committees because he didn't pass every conservative priority they wanted. It's just something of a purity test within the Republican Party that I think is splitting more traditional conservatives with the Trump era of conservative. And we're seeing that play out in this battle for power, that is still ongoing.
And speaking of the former president, we know that he even backed some of the candidates who were running.
Right, David Covey, and many of the candidates that Paxton also endorsed. Paxton and Trump go hand in hand in Texas politics nowadays. They're very close political allies, so I think Paxton's influence kind of brought Trump into the fold. And we've seen if you're a Republican in a primary, the one friend that you really need to have is Donald Trump, because once he meddles in your race, it's hard to overcome his endorsement.
Although Phelan did.
He did.
Yeah, he
did.
did. So it can be
barely.
done. Yeah.
It's
300 some odd votes. Yeah.
Right. He was one of the only speakers to face a challenge like this. So he won re-election, but it's a dubious win at best.
Yeah. All right, Ryan Chandler, thanks for your insight. We hope you can catch a nap sometime today.
It's on my to-do list. Thanks all.
All right, thanks.